Hurricane Melissa has exploded in strength overnight, and we are still expecting multiple catastrophic landfalls over the next several days. Jamaica is first, Cuba is next after that, and then we got to watch the Bahamas and even Bermuda on down the road. So here to give you the latest information that we have, I continue to be extremely concerned about what this system can do to our family down here in the Caribbean. Timestamps will be up throughout the entire video. Definitely utilize them, maneuver throughout the video however way you please. I understand not everybody has all the time in the world to watch a 35 minute video about the weather, but it's going to be jam-packed full of information. We'll go over model data, impacts, current conditions, and all that. And then we'll round off the video speaking on a pretty active weather pattern to finish off October, especially for the central and definitely the eastern U.S. and even getting into the early portion of November. Don't want to ignore that. For my people tuning in across the lower 48, we'll have a segment for that. So tune in to that if you want. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. And we are praying for you folks like crazy down here in the Caribbean. Let's get going this morning. So we knew this thing would rapidly intensify overnight, and that's exactly what happened. As of right now, around 7:30 Eastern time, this is a Category 4, 140 mile per hour hurricane, but it continues to intensify this morning. And by the time a lot of you folks watch this, it'll be even stronger, maybe even a Category 5 hurricane, which it's still forecast to become sometime over the next 12 to 24 hours, maybe even sooner. But if you tuned into last night's video, you know that this did not have a cleared out eye. It now does. You can see just the hot towers just rotating cyclonically around that eye. You can, when you have an eye, you know exactly where that low level circulation is, right? Which is right here in the eye of this hurricane. So it's warmed, it's cleared out. So we know that this thing is cranking and now fully taking advantage of the light wind shear and the very warm sea surface temperatures down here in the Caribbean. Jamaica's right here, you got Haiti right here, and Cuba's not really on the screen just because we're so zoomed into this hurricane, but it just looks as awful as we thought it was going to look at this point. I mean, it is a very scary look. You know, Jamaica just to the north staring this system down, and it just, it's just not a good scene right now. So we continue to move past this. We do have a new update. It was issued about 15 minutes ago. Still 140 mile per hour hurricane. Has a central pressure of 944 millibars, moving west at a whopping 5 miles per hour, so continues to move extremely slow down here in the Caribbean, just south and southeast of Jamaica. So let's go over the latest cone. All right, let's update this, see if we have any new information. Let's click on this, and yeah, nothing's changed. 140 mile per hour hurricane. And I'll say this a couple more times. Just note, I'm making this video as around 7:30, 7:45. So if you're tuning in and like, Mitch, this is stronger than 140. Trust me, I know. I'm not going live. I'm kind of recording this and then uploading it. But by the time we get into this afternoon, forecast to become a 150 mile per hour Category 4 hurricane. Could happen sooner, later this morning. And then by sometime this evening, I would say into tonight, forecast to become a Category 5 hurricane. Now just note that this cone continues to be very wide in the next 24 hours. So the center of the system, this is not the impact cone. The center of the system can still dip down way over here. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this cone does shift a little bit to the west, and I'll talk to you about why as we make our way throughout the video. Still forecast to be a Category 5 hurricane by tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m., and then by overnight Monday night, 2 a.m. Tuesday, still 155 mile per hour Cat 4 hurricane. And Jamaica, I mean, you're right smack in the middle of the cone. All of Jamaica is right in the middle of the cone. Okay? And by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon, this gets north of Jamaica. And all of Jamaica, by the way, you have a hurricane warning for obvious reasons. And nothing's changed with Haiti over here. We will get an upgrade to a hurricane warning in eastern Cuba here in the next at least 24 hours or so. But this is Tuesday, 2 p.m., and then this is Wednesday, 2 a.m. So this is what, a 12-hour period? Okay, so it looks like if we kind of had to find the middle ground, this will probably make some sort of landfall, more than likely late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning in eastern Cuba. Let's make this a little bit wider for us. And then from Wednesday, 2 a.m. to Thursday, 2 a.m., okay, that is going to be the time period, the 24-hour time period where it rumbles through areas of the Bahamas. And Turks Caicos Islands, you guys are still in this cone. This is where the center of the storm could go. It's not the impact cone. So that eye can still go over here, which would push more impacts off to the east, just like it could still go over here. Okay, but islands of, the Bahama Islands, southern and central areas, are going to see hurricane impacts from either a category, I would say probably around a category 2, maybe even 3 hurricane rumbling through this area. Okay, and then we make it even wider. What about Bermuda? You guys are now in the cone, saying by 2 a.m. Friday, this should be a category 1 hurricane. And I think this begins to lose a lot of its tropical characteristics as it gets later into this coming work week. But we gotta watch Bermuda too. There's an outside chance that this can make 4 landfalls. Okay, it's almost a lock to make a landfall in Jamaica. Speaking of Jamaica, they do have a radar, which is awesome. And I think that this radar does a good job. That stinks. Here, let's see if it goes a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's not, let's just pause it so it doesn't glitch out on us. Okay. It shows Eastern Cuba, obviously shows Jamaica, shows Western Haiti. And it actually does a great job of showing the elevation, the mountain ranges, things like that. And Jamaica has a lot of higher terrain. So Hurricane Melissa is on radar now, and it's going to be on radar for a couple days before it actually comes north and makes a landfall. But you can see the cleared out eye on radar right now. It's that close. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now let's go over some information from the hurricane hunters. They're flying through this system. I don't think this thing has strengthened a whole lot between now and the last 3 or 4 hours. But it's probably going to take off again and undergo another period of rapid intensification, I would say. But they've flown through it, still finding. When you look at this 952 and you kind of break down the data, it's probably in the 940s millibar wise. So category 4 hurricane doing its thing. Hurricane hunters continue to fly through this, and they're probably going to do something like this. They're probably going to come back up and then take right back off through the center of the storm and continue to get data. And I'll be interested to see what they find in this area of the storm right here, wind-wise at flight level, because we always got to watch out with these systems, especially with dry air to the west. A lot of times the eastern side of the system is going to just have more high impact weather inside this hurricane. So I'll be interested to see what they find in that northeast eye wall. But just remember, now that we're doing videos and this thing is exploding, a lot of changing information is going on. So let's go over the hurricane models. We got about 84 hours worth, so that should take us through most of this system in the Caribbean. We'll start off this morning and we'll look at what is this? This is the HFA model. It's initializing pretty well, saying it's around a 940 millibar low, and that's pretty much what it is. I mean, we don't expect model runs to be perfect, right? So this continues, and we're seeing a bit of a trend here for this to stay west longer. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to find out. We get into this evening. This is well south of Jamaica, but certainly close enough to bring some outer bands, but nothing high impact. Look how this thing, I mean, it's almost getting southwest of Jamaica, which if you go back a couple days, a lot of model data showed stuff like that. And this thing is showing it in the 920s. I mean, it's still a category 4 or 5 hurricane. I mean, it dips way down here, and then it begins to turn north. And unfortunately, with some of these hurricane models, we're getting back to some of these runs showing sub 920 millibars. So it's now showing a 918 millibar low, which is a category 5 hurricane on approach to the southern shoreline of Jamaica. That's just awful stuff. It really is. So this is Tuesday morning, October the 28th, and it actually makes landfall as a 913 millibar low. That's a Cat 5 hurricane, folks. A Tuesday afternoon, October the 28th, comes up, goes right through the island of Jamaica, gets north, and then makes another landfall sometime Wednesday morning into eastern Cuba, and then it's probably going to make a third landfall as it's coming up through the Bahama Islands. And this is as far out as the run as I got. I'm going to actually have to switch it to the OOZ run, which placement-wise, it's actually a little bit different. It's much faster. So that's interesting. So it stinks that I can't show you. The OOZ just has not completed its run, but the HFA model on the 06Z run is slower because it gets further west and turns slower. So this would bring a hurricane Wednesday PM into Wednesday night right through the Bahama Islands, and here it comes. And this system's probably going to broaden a little bit as it slowly, as it gets north, probably starts to lose a little bit of its tropical characteristics. I mean, it's late October. You even get cold fronts and just dry air all the way down here. The HFB model, we got a little bit more of this, so it'll show more of its path through the Bahamas. It's initializing 2 week, 9:55, but we'll continue to show it just for the path. And we get into Monday morning, 24 hours from now. This is well south of Jamaica. It's tucked in down here in the Caribbean, bathing in those warm waters. And unfortunately, we're continuing to see the trend even on this. Drops this down to the 920s and gets it to that sub 920 millibar range. And Tuesday morning has a hurricane Cat 4 or 5 in status going right towards the southern and southwest coastline of Jamaica. And this actually has it hitting sometime Tuesday morning, going over the island of Jamaica, getting north of Jamaica, and then comes up and makes its second landfall sometime late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So this would be a slower progression with this. And then we start to get north of eastern Cuba, and this comes up, and this wind field, I think, begins to broaden in the Bahamas. I don't think the Bahamas are getting talked about a ton with this, just because our focus is Jamaica first, obviously. The Bahamas could get hit hard with this. This is Wednesday afternoon. Turks Caicos over here. Looks like it's far enough to the north, northwest, and west here. But this is a broadening eye wall. Of course, the structure of this system probably starts to get depleted somewhat. But this is going to blast through. We're lucky it's going to move through fast. But if you live in these southern and even areas of the central Bahama Islands, please get ready for an all-out hurricane midway this coming week. And then this gets north, and we have to watch it after that. HMON model, initializing maybe a touch too strong, but let's just continue to watch it. Monday morning, this gets well south, same thing as the other hurricane models I just showed you of Jamaica. And then it comes up, makes that turn, and kind of makes landfall in the same area as the HFB makes landfall. Sometime Tuesday morning, gets north of the island, comes up. Sometime Tuesday night, makes landfall in eastern Cuba, and then comes up and rumbles right through the Bahama Islands. Like these, I'm sorry for moving so fast. The Bahama Islands right here, coming up through here. Wednesday morning, this is getting into midday Wednesday, and then it clears out. And look how large this hurricane gets as it loses those tropical characteristics. Now, the H-Wharf model, initializing too strong. So that's something to monitor. But gosh, it just, this Monday morning, here it comes, and it comes up and actually barely makes a landfall. It's so far west into western Jamaica. And you might think, for people who are tuning in from Jamaica, and by the way, thank you so much for the support. I have not even gotten to run through the comments over the last 2 days, but I've always had such amazing support for my family down here in Jamaica. So thank you so much. I appreciate you trusting me with this, but makes a landfall in western Jamaica. Now you might think in Jamaica, hey, this is going to limit impacts. No, for example, if the H-Wolf model is right with this, you're going to get absolutely thrashed with the dirty side of this hurricane on the entire island. And then this gets north and then makes that second landfall sometime Tuesday afternoon, a little bit earlier than the other hurricane models, faster progression, goes right over Cuba Tuesday, and then it comes up and slams the Bahamas, central and southern Bahamas, sometime in the wee hours of the morning Wednesday, and just a little bit faster. Some of the other models showing more of a Wednesday PM type deal. But like I said, look how the system broadens out. The wind field really expands here. And then this gets north. All right, so we're going to do this occasionally. We're going to go back and look, see what's changed, what's not. Nothing has. So let's go over some ensemble guidance. This is the Google DeepMind. This is going to show a bunch of members on your screen. We got a very zoomed in look here. So what is it showing? Almost every member makes a landfall, but you're not seeing as many members making a landfall in Jamaica in the eastern side. It's more so the central to western side now. So something to watch. It comes up, makes a landfall somewhere in the eastern areas of Cuba, and then it comes up. And I do want you guys to note there's still a bit of a spread here in the Bahamas. Okay, I don't think it's going to make any kind of direct landfall in the Turks Caicos, but that's a pretty wide spread throughout the Bahamas. So if you're tuning in, say hey, but it's going to be a tough one. You know, these are just islands out here. We don't know if it's going to make that third landfall, right? It could just kind of, the actual eye of the hurricane kind of squeeze in between some of these islands, but just be expecting a hurricane in the middle portion of this work week. But there's a bit of a spread up here. I don't know why it keeps switching like that. A little bit of a spread up here for sure. But Jamaica, I mean, we're locking this in as far as a landfall. And here's the grand ensemble. I will note, and what you're seeing here, you see all these squiggly lines. This is members of all ensemble guidance except the UK Met. Literally all model guidance here. And that black line is the mean, the average of all these members. I think it's a phenomenal thing to look at. There hasn't been much change with this. I will note this line is a little bit further west in the short term now. So it's liking that actual landfall maybe for the western sections of Jamaica. And I've talked about this a lot. We're about to dive into this. Who's going to see the inner eye wall of this hurricane? That's the people who will see, you know, 130, 140, 150 mile per hour wind gusts, maybe even higher in Jamaica. There's a little bit of a spread for eastern Cuba and certainly a bigger spread for the Bahamas. So that's just normal. The further out you get away in time, a little bit of a spread we're going to have. Now, this is the latest as far as rainfall. We'll see if there's a new updated graphic. And there is not. So this is the same one from last night. They update this once every 24 hours. But in this purple color, folks, that's up to 40 inches of rain for areas of eastern Jamaica. And I could see this area of rain shifting further west into Jamaica because of this, a bit of this west trend that we're seeing. But this pink color, that is 20 to 30 inches of rain plus. And then that burgundy color, that is 16 to 20 inches of rain. So we're, you know, measuring this rain in feet, not inches down here. I mean, just catastrophic rainfall totals. And I want you to note, I'm going to draw on this a little bit. This area right here of Cuba has higher terrain. I mean, pretty much all these areas right here in Haiti have higher terrain. The entire island of Jamaica, once you get just inland, is higher terrain. So what does that mean? That means all this tropical moisture is going to push up against the higher mountain peaks and things like that. It creates lift. That lift squeezes out all the available moisture in the atmosphere and just amplifies the flooding risk. So what about the timeline of tropical storm force wind gusts? Pause the screen if you need to, or the video. You're already starting to probably see this this morning in Jamaica, but you'll definitely have conditions that will go downhill throughout the next 24 hours and significantly go downhill as we get into tomorrow and Tuesday. But we should start to see these 40 mile per hour wind gusts throughout Cuba, areas of Haiti, and into the Bahamas early this work week, and could start to see it in Bermuda later this work week. Now, this is the chances to see 75 mile per hour wind gusts or higher, pretty much locking that in Jamaica, even though it just says a 50 to 70% chance. I mean, but look through the Bahamas. I mean, we're starting to get to that 30 to 40% chance to see 75 mile per hour winds or higher. But one thing I just really want to look at here is some hurricane model guidance as far as possible wind speeds. Okay, this is the HFA model. I do want you guys to note that right in here where you see the silver area, this is the potential for 145 mile per hour wind gust. Okay, and that is that inner eye wall that we're talking about, which is right into here, folks. This is the actual live hurricane, right into there. Okay, so let's get this in motion. Jamaica's here. Time frame, this is getting into this afternoon. We move here in time. All right, this is hanging off way south of Jamaica. But even the southern shorelines of Jamaica, certainly getting 50 to even 70 mile per hour wind gusts with some of these banding features as we're getting into tomorrow. And then this comes up and makes that landfall. Okay, you see that kind of grayed out silver area right here. If you look at the color code down here, I mean, folks, that is 130 to 150 mile per hour wind gust moving into this area. So the entire island of Jamaica is going to get a lot of rain, especially the eastern side, right? But who's going to get that life-altering winds that are just going to demolish a lot? I'm not trying to use crazy bad words here, but whoever gets the inner eye wall here, I mean, could it be Kingston? I haven't mentioned that, but could it be? It could be. But who's going to get it here? Whoever does, it's just going to cause devastation. Okay, but in this case, the entire island is going to get hurricane force winds. I mean, this is going right through the island here. This is Tuesday afternoon. But in that core, that's where you're going to get Category 2 to Category 5 wind gusts through this area. And then this comes up. I think the wind field begins to broaden somewhat. And then we get into, and the time frame might not be perfect with this. We got some slowing trends of this, which is unfortunate. But then this rumbles through eastern Cuba as we're getting through Wednesday morning. And this is, 105, 110 mile per hour wind gusts going through eastern Cuba. And this comes up, and look how this wind field broadens now. So this is Wednesday afternoon going through the Bahama Islands here. Like I said, I'm not going to pretend like I know the name of every single one of these islands here. I wish I did. Maybe one day I can. But these are wind gusts going through this area, folks, that are pushing. I mean, this dark pink color, guys, I mean, that's over, let's just say over 100 mile per hour wind gusts. And listen, it can be 20, 30 mile per hour wind gusts higher than over 100. So just Category 2 to 3 hurricane force wind gusts going through areas of the Bahamas. And just an awful situation. So we cannot forget about after Cuba, the Bahamas either. And this is the HFB model, just kind of showing you a couple runs of this. Wind gust once again, here it comes. And it comes up and slams more so western areas of of Jamaica with that eye wall. This is kind of Tuesday morning. And that silver area, that's catastrophic wind gusts that will just level anything out there just about. Okay? I mean, that silver area, like I said, that's 130, 145 mile per hour wind gusts. I mean, it even maxes out the color key down here. So, you can look at stuff like, let's just look at, say, the H-Wharf model. Let's go back to this. And this is only going to show, this is just going to be, this is just going to show, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like, so it doesn't look like the 06Z run has happened yet. But anyways, guys, just be prepared. We're still trying to figure out where the eye wall is going to actually hit. Now, speaking on the conditions, what's promoting this thing to just take off, right? Well, sea surface temperatures is an easy one. It's hanging out over 30 to 31 degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures. You convert that to Fahrenheit, that's the mid to upper 80s. So it's very warm. And there's depth to this warm water too. So even though it's moving slow, it mixes up the water, can bring cooler water to the surface, and sometimes that can weaken the storm system. In this case, the water even below the surface is very warm. Okay, the next thing we talk about is this upper wind pattern. So I'm going to stop it here because we're getting that little glitch that really throws me off. So this is the current look on the system, right? This is water vapor loop. And we're getting the expanding out of air in this system. So you can see it here, you can see it there. A lot of moisture on the eastern side of the system. You see it here, you see it here, over here. And then kind of right here, it kind of dramatically goes like this, right? There's a lot of dry air indicated in the black colors on your screen to the west of the system. On the eastern side of the system, there's a lot of moist air. You can see that cleared out dry eye right here indicating a powerful hurricane, which is what it is. But the system itself is still getting hit by a little wind shear on the western side. But because this wind shear has lessened somewhat, I'm going to get this back in motion. We'll just ignore the little glitch it's doing right there. Because it's in such lower wind shear now and this thing has developed such a tight core, it's not being bothered by the dry air really at all. And in fact, we've had the expanding out of these outflows. We're getting divergence aloft, a lot of air being dispersed out away from the center of the storm system, allowing for an environment that supports a lot of rising air, which is just shower and thunderstorm activity, which creates more of a moist environment. Sorry about the little glitch there. I can't stand when that happens. But we'll move past this. And if you actually compare this with what's being modeled, like on the H-Wharf model, for example, it matches up well. You can see these lines with the arrows embedded into them, expanding out. This is for this afternoon, but same difference here. And you can see the arrows expanding out, then doing like this, and then like that. And there's actually a little bit of a ridge that's kind of building over this system. And I think that's why we're having a bit of a trend for this to kind of hang to the west a little bit more. But anyways, just focusing on the strength. this thing is basically in an environment of low wind shear, and because it's developed such a tight inner core, even though there's dry air to the west, it's not being bothered by it. This thing has just pretty much created its own environment that has supported explosive strengthening of Melissa over the last 24 hours or so. So I'm not going to speak much on the steering of this. I've broke that down a lot over the last few days, but it's basically in light steering currents between two different high pressures. And if anything, this is going to be steered by some sort of ridge of high pressure over here, and actually going to push this further west before this weakens. Trough digs down, scoops this system up, and heads on out. So that's my last update on that. Let's update this and see if there's any new information. System looks powerful, guys. I mean, I just always like to re-go over this and make sure we're not missing any new, because this is a changing system. You can tell the hurricane hunters are about to fly up here and then go right through this system once again. But I do want to spend some time on the pattern evolving to end October. I know that my people across the lower 48 are probably thinking, man, you've left us hanging here. I'm going to spend some time on this. So let's talk about it. So to end October, I made a video about a week ago explaining the potential for a very active and just energetic pattern to end this month, getting into early November. And Model Guidance is really locked into this. So the blue you see on your screen, that's lower pressure. The warmer colors, that's higher pressure. So I'm going to get this in motion. This is the Euro. You're going to see a system as we're getting into Monday, digging down across the south. And then we have another trough that kind of digs down here and gets trapped and sort of becomes a cutoff low, and this digs down. Each one of these little blue blobs brings a storm system with it, and then a cold shot of air to follow. So this kind of amplifies into a full-fledged, almost upper trough across the eastern U.S. as we're getting into Friday. And then we have little impulses of energy that dive down at the base of this trough. And this is getting into November, and it just looks like a very energetic cold pattern over the next 10 days. Ridge pops off to the west. And yeah, I mean, I know you're probably looking at this like, man, I don't know what in the world I'm looking at here. So I'm going to bring it back to about right here. Let's match what we're seeing currently on model data with actual current conditions, right? So let's look at this. This is the radar. You see all this unsettled weather out across the Rockies, the Northwest, and you see a lot of unsettled weather across the southern tier of the country, and a little bit of rain shower activity across the Northeast. So what do you got? You got three different areas, right? You got this, and you got that. Let's match it up with the blue blobs on the screen I just showed you. Blue blob, blue blob, blue blob. Matches up well, right? So I love when the actual radar matches up with what we're seeing on model output, right? So now that we got that, I do want to mention a little bit of a severe weather threat across the southern tier of the country today, the deep south. And there is a little bit of a flooding threat too, because of this system right here, which is this system right here, a little cutoff low, a little storm system. So I showed you how the pattern evolves over the next 10 days. What does it mean at the surface? Okay, so this first initial storm system moves across the southeast, could pop off a coastal low actually. Come on, get in motion for me. Am I really going to have to click this again? I am. Awesome. That's fine. But we get into Monday. Look at all this unsettled weather across the southeast. If you love a nice, dreary fall stretch of weather, and what I'm saying is, fall weather can be dreary, kind of cloudy, rainy. You're going to love this week across the southeast. I mean, it's just your classic, just cloudy, rainy kind of week. And this first low pops off. That is not Melissa, by the way. That's just a coastal low popping off the coast of the eastern U.S. That moves out. And then here comes another system behind this trough, digging down, this cutoff low into the middle of the country. Not a ton of cold air associated with it, but cold air aloft is associated with it. And then look, this is late Wednesday night. Look at all this rain scooting across the upper southeast, the mid-Atlantic. There's Melissa slipping up on your screen. We got to watch out Bermuda for this. And then as we're getting into late Thursday into Friday morning, Halloween, we're gonna have some thunderstorms across the Northeast with a shot of cool air. And even though this is showing up in green, we could have a little bit of snowflakes with this. And then another system tries to fly down here. And then after we get between the day 7 and day 10 time frame, we could have just a cooler pattern. Look at a little bit of blue showing up. But if we look at the GFS, same thing. Storm system tomorrow. We're going to see clouds building in across the southeast. And then here comes our second storm system for the middle portion of this week, diving down, bringing a lot of rain. And then as we get into Thursday, look at some of this blue showing up. Okay, and look at more blue. This is heavy snow in the higher elevations of West Virginia, higher terrain in the southern tier of New York and PA. And then we got a low spinning around. Look at this higher elevation snow of the Adirondacks, Tokyo Plateau. This is getting into, this is Halloween night. And then what comes next? Another system flies down embedded in this trough, and this could bring in some more crazy cooler weather with a little bit of snow. Man, it just looks, pattern screams cold rain for a lot of areas. And then we get way past this. But listen, the rainfall between now and this goes all the way out to basically a week from today, November the 2nd. Almost time to put up that Christmas tree. But a lot of rain forecasted by the Weather Prediction Center for the Eastern U.S. Okay, and listen, there's a shot for snow with this too. This is the ensemble guys from the Euro showing the signal for snow in the central to even southern Appalachian Mountains, even as far south as North Carolina and Tennessee. And then look across the Northeast, a little bit of a signal for some snow showing up. And the thing I'll round this off with is, between now and between now and the morning of November 1st, we're locking in pretty much a below average temperature pattern across this entire area. It's going to be a chilly Halloween across the southern tier of the country, southeast, mid-Atlantic. But we're locking in a very chilly air mass. And honestly, folks, if you go and you look, I'll round the video off with this. If you go and you look at the latest Climate Prediction Center outlook, this is what they're thinking between the 31st and the 4th of November. Below average temperatures is predicted across the southeast and mid-Atlantic. But then this extends all the way through the 2nd to the 8th of November, going for below average temperatures for the eastern U.S. So I'm a fan of this. I know not everybody else is. You guys know I love cooler weather, and I'll tell you, I'm ready to talk about some snow, that's for sure. But God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. We'll do it again tonight, and we'll talk soon.